Okay, so Gamescom, night one, opening night. Look, I wasn't planning on covering Gamescom in such a large amount of detail. I've got to be honest, I always watch Gamescom. I always, take the evenings off and at least have it on in the background when I'm doing something else. But usually I'll sit there, with a pizza and grab something to drink and just chill and watch. But it's never really about Nintendo, is it? It's more kind of a celebration of the industry. But the majority of the games at Gamescom usually don't interest me at all. They're, Xbox and PlayStation AAA stuff, often either like online stuff like free-to-play shooters or FPS games like COD, Black Ops, Siege, stuff that I don't really play and I'm not really interested in. Or we have a lot of, huge, big cinematic trailers, which are all CGI only and no actual gameplay. And Geoff Keighley, bless his soul, he likes to fill it with not really relevant things. Sometimes it's kind of cool, like when he gets orchestras to play music. But I mean, often we have celebrities that have almost nothing to do with gaming, or sometimes there's even, film trailers and stuff like that, TV trailers. I don't know. It's, there's never that much Nintendo stuff there. So I hadn't really planned on covering it for this channel, certainly not, a full live reaction to each kind of 3-hour presentation or whatever it is. And especially as I'm busy at the moment, we've just had the Kirby Air Riders Direct, 45 minutes worth of Kirby Air Riders Direct. I am covering it. I'm in the middle of making the video, but then I got the notification on my phone, and some of you will know what I'm going to say. It was for the Sonic X Pac-Man, Sonic and Pac-Man collaboration. Sonic appearing in Pac-Man World 2 and Pac-Man appearing in Sonic Crossworlds, and it just completely broke my brain, and I was like, okay, I have to drop everything and make a video on that. So earlier I put out a literal kind of 40-minute me having a mental breakdown talking about how incredible it was. I'm still just, I can't believe that's happening. To me, that's just incredible. But yeah, I still wasn't planning on doing a whole Gamescom night one breakdown. I thought, well, I'll just wait until after the entire 5-day event is finished and then do a roundup of the few little Nintendo things that were announced. But foolish me, 12 games were announced or shown for Nintendo Switch 1 or 2 in just the first night. And there's also 7 more games to talk about, because of course whenever you have Gamescom, even if something's not at the show itself, there's announcements on the show floor, because it's a real event that happens that you can go to, like the old E3 event. I guess it's kind of taken over from E3, so it's like an exposition, and even just online, games companies like to make their announcements at the same time when they know that everybody's going to be looking for video game news. So even if you're not officially part of the show, you can kind of sneak in with some of the hype. So yeah, obviously we've got the Kirby Air Riders Direct. I won't cover that here. There's a whole separate video for that, hopefully out later today, but they're killing me with these videos. But I have to do the Gamecom night one now, because night 2 is about to start, right? So before the event started, Pokemon Legends ZA had a teaser that we will have a trailer premiere on the 21st. So tomorrow or day after tomorrow. In the announcement, they just put up 2 spooky photos. There's a definite horror theme vibe going on, which is cool, because obviously the game releases in mid-October, so ready for Halloween. And also, spoilers, secret alert, you may very well have a exclusive announcement from me too. Remember, I'm a game dev myself, unrelated to Pokemon, of course, but for spooky season. Yeah, definite horror vibes going on, and with Pokemon Legends ZA, I've talked about it at length in other videos. One of the coolest things for me about it, being set in essentially a version of Paris, they are having a very distinct day-night cycle. Where different things happen at nighttime. So presumably, whatever this spooky content that they're going to be talking about will be stuff that happens at night. The photos really do look like they're screenshots from a horror film, by the way. So, you know, I'm really intrigued. But also, they mentioned there's like a kind of detective side plot. You can do detective missions, and also there's an underground crime kind of mafia ring run by Corbeau, which is French for crow or raven. So it's all very grimdark, but in a cool kind of cartoony way. So yeah, we don't know what's happening other than we've had a teaser that there will be something on the 21st. But also the Pokemon World Championships 2025 have just wrapped up. Obviously, we talked about them before. They were happening in Anaheim. At the Pokemon World Championships, every time they have a closing ceremony, they make game announcements. So there was some updates about Legends ZA and some of the mobile stuff as well. So maybe when they release this premiere on the 21st, I should do a full Pokemon-themed special episode covering everything from the Pokemon World Championships announcements from a day or two ago and the ZA premiere, whatever it is that happens on the 21st. If you guys would be up for that, give me a shout. My Pokemon episodes so far seem to have done pretty well. They seem to get more views than average. So obviously a lot of Pokemon fans watch my channel, so that's great. Especially as I am really looking forward to Pokemon Legends ZA, and because it's essentially the French Pokemon, and I currently live in France, I've got some really cool things planned. I'm going to visit Paris and show, you know, the locations from the game in real life and stuff like that. So stay tuned for that. If you're not subscribed already, hit that subscribe, ring the bell, all the other things that YouTubers say. Also, we got an update on Dragonball Sparking Zero. I previously talked about that game at length in my coverage of the Partner Direct. I thought it looked really good. I'm not a big Dragon Ball guy. I watched it a lot when I was young, but I've not kept up with it. But I thought it looked amazing. It looked potentially like the best possible Dragon Ball game, like the ultimate Dragon Ball game, with how much content there was and all the different mashups that you can do with it. However, my excitement went down a little bit when I looked more into it and I realized the pricing model, and if you want to get everything, it's a pretty pricey game with a lot of kind of scummy DLC practices and deluxe edition practices and pre-order practices and stuff like that. I did say that I thought the graphics looked really good, and I was surprised when I saw that it was coming out on Switch 1 and Switch 2, and I said, oh well, the footage that we're looking at here is obviously Switch 2 footage. There's been an update yesterday or today, depending on what time this video goes up. The Switch 1 version will run at 720p docked or 480p handheld, and they say it's 30 FPS for the gameplay and 24 FPS in some menus. 720p docked, 30 FPS, you know, that's pretty decent. I couldn't have expected more from the Switch 1, really, especially with the graphics looking that nice. Some people might be like, well, why is it 24 FPS for some menus? Surely the menus are less intensive than the graphics. I wouldn't say that's a technical issue of needing to slow down. What I'd say is it's probably those menus use footage either from the animation or from movies, because 24 FPS is standard frame rate for movies and 12 FPS, so exactly half, is standard for animation. Whenever some of you will know, I work in the movie industry. I'm a film producer, director, etc. And yeah, almost all real movies, in inverted commas, rather than TV shows or whatever, are in 24 frames per second. So that's probably why. So you don't need to worry about that 24 frames per second. That doesn't indicate performance issues. But what you do need to worry about is the Switch 2 version apparently uses dynamic resolution, maxing out at 810p, and still runs at 30 frames per second. What? So the Switch 1 version, when it's docked at least, is 720p. And the Switch 2 uses a dynamic resolution, maxing out at 810p. 810p is hardly much more over 720p, to be honest. And also, dynamic resolution really isn't great. A lot of people don't like the look when the resolution keeps changing as you're playing. It can really throw people off, myself included. And the fact that it's still 30 frames per second, I don't know. A fighting game really needs to be at 60 FPS, doesn't it? But I would assume that the Switch 2 version will have a more stable frame rate at 30 frames per second than the Switch 1. But we don't know that until the game comes out. It might be that the Switch 1 works perfectly well at 30 frames per second. Now, okay, it's only 720p docked. If you're playing handheld, it's 480p, whereas it's 720 if you're playing handheld on the Switch 2. So that might be a big difference if you're playing handheld. But if you're mostly going to be playing on the TV, if the frame rates are stable for both, you might be better off with the Switch 1 version. Firstly, because it's a locked resolution, but also secondly, the physical version comes on the cartridge, whereas the physical version of the Switch 2 version is keycard only. So I don't know. Keep subscribed to the channel, and I will give updates. I will talk about the game when it comes out because I am interested in it at the very least. I do think it looks really good, but 30 frames per second for the Switch 2 version and a dynamic resolution, that's disappointing. So we'll see. Capcom launched a website for Resident Evil's 30th anniversary coming next year. Jeez, that makes me feel old. God, I feel like I was a pretty old teenager by the time I played Resident Evil 1 for the first time. Admittedly, I played it on the Saturn, so that was like a year after it came out on the PlayStation, and the PlayStation probably, the English language version probably came out after the Japanese. But still, 30 years ago, we're getting older, people. There's some beautiful art on the website. Absolutely love it. It's reminiscent of, I can't remember the art. There's an Art Deco artist who drew kind of beautiful ladies to represent the seasons with very intricate designs. I can't remember. As soon as I stop recording, I'm sure I will remember the artist. And if I'd have remembered, I would have sounded really, really smart. But yeah, no, it's done in that style. But yeah, really beautiful. If I could get like a large poster / art print of that, I might actually get it because it looks really cool, and it's got like all of the main Resident Evil characters but in that style. So that's on the website, and there's a couple of new logos for the 30th anniversary celebration. There's nothing else on the website yet. They've just put it there as a placeholder. Obviously it's not the anniversary till next year. There's no game announcements or anything yet. However, it went up today or yesterday, depending on when you watch it. I'm going to stop saying that. I'm just going to say today, but you know what I mean. But also, Gamescom opening night, there was a trailer for Resident Evil Requiem, Resident Evil 9. Obviously, we knew it was coming out on the 27th of February, 2026. That's the launch date, Resident Evil 9 Requiem. The new trailer that I'm showing here looks absolutely amazing, looks great. It's mostly story. It said gameplay trailer, but it's mostly story content that you're seeing. But I guess what it means is it's, in engine. To be clear, the footage that I'm showing is I think the PS5 version. There's no Switch 2 version announced as yet. I don't even know whether Capcom are considering releasing it on. Well, I'm sure they're considering it, but whether they think it will be possible to release it on the Switch 2. It's a very graphically intensive game, but Nintendo platforms have had many Resident Evil games over the years, including exclusive ones and ones that come out first on a Nintendo platform. And Capcom are supporting the Switch 2 and have supported the Switch 1 very heavily. So ever since the days of the GameCube and the Game Boy Color, they've been releasing exclusive or first-time games for the Resident Evil series. So either way, I'm mentioning it here because Nintendo fans, quite a lot of Nintendo fans will be fans of Resident Evil But we don't know, to be clear, we don't know if Resident Evil 9 will come to the Switch too, but I'm keeping absolutely everything crossed because I think it looks amazing and I want to play it, but as you know, I'm predominantly a Nintendo player for consoles. Also announced before the event started, Shenmue 3 is confirmed for Nintendo platforms, in inverted commas, in enhanced form, Shenmue 3 Enhanced. We will be getting more information during Gamescom at some point, so I will wait to give my full verdict until we get the more information. The footage that I'm playing here, by the way, is not the enhanced version. It's from the original PS4 version. There's no enhanced footage available yet as I'm making this, but I do want to mention the announcement. I know a lot of people will be interested. We do already have a list of the improvements already, and it all sounds pretty good, but it also says optionality first. All major changes can be toggled to preserve the original experience for purists. I love that. Kudos to the developers. I think that is fantastic. When old games are re-released and they make a load of changes, it's so nice to be able to say, oh, I like some changes, but I don't like the other ones, or, oh no, I just want to see what it was like playing the original version. So I think that's fantastic. I mention, whenever I talk about Yakuza, I mention that I haven't played much Yakuza, but I am a big fan of Shenmue. I was a huge Dreamcast guy. I pre-ordered that console and got it day one, and I supported it, and I was devastated when it died. Shenmue 1 is, I mean, it's a flawed game, but it is a game that I have so much respect for and so much love for. It was so groundbreaking for the time, and in some ways to this day, many AAA kind of open world sandbox games don't have the amount of freedom that Shenmue had, and to be able to say that for a game, you know, back in 2000, I think it came out in, maybe 1999, I think it was 2000. That's incredible. Shenmue 2 was, you know, more of the same, but it continued the story. And then, of course, it got ported to the Xbox and possibly some other consoles as well. But Shenmue 3 basically never happened, in inverted commas, but then eventually, many years later, we got a Kickstarter for Shenmue 3, and everybody, myself included, was absolutely elated because, oh my god, it's a brand new game in this series that's iconic and historic and that we all love, and the story is going to get a continuation, because Shenmue 2, you know, it didn't finish the story. It ended kind of on a cliffhanger, and everybody wanted to know what's going to happen in Shenmue 3, and then Shenmue 3 never came out, and then suddenly they were kickstarting it, and it was a huge success. I think it raised over $1 million. But here's the thing, though. I've got to be honest, I didn't really like Shenmue 3 when it came out, and I think a lot of people felt very disappointed by it. Firstly, it was extremely similar to Shenmue 1 and 2 in, you know, the graphics. It hadn't really developed since then. But to me, I didn't really mind that. I didn't mind that. I was like, okay, well, this is just as if there had been a Shenmue 3 on Dreamcast, so I don't mind if the graphics aren't that much better. What did bother me was there were some flaws that made the gameplay really frustrating and really repetitive, and certain parts feel really empty. And it looks like, from what they've put in that list of improvements, it looks like that some of those have been dealt with, so that's nice. But the story itself was the main issue for myself and many people, because, like I say, Shenmue 2 had that kind of cliffhanger, and Shenmue 1 and 2 had a very clear throughput of the storyline, and they had the opportunity to wrap it up nicely with Shenmue 3, wrap up all the loose ends, finish the storyline. There we go, we've got a nice trilogy, self-contained. Or they could have, you know, built up the story even more and lent into, oh, now everybody can't wait for Shenmue 4, let's fund Shenmue 4. But the storyline in Shenmue 3, it was kind of just not very much happened. And it didn't tie up the loose ends, and it just was like, it felt more like a kind of side quest of Shenmue 2. And considering we'd been waiting such a long time for Shenmue 3, and we thought it was never going to happen, that was a massive disappointment. But it is nice that we're getting it now, and we're getting what will be an improved version by the look of it. The fact that we're going to be able to play Shenmue on a Nintendo system, I think for the first time, in fact, I'm pretty sure for the first time, is fantastic. But for Nintendo fans, it's a real shame that we're not also getting Shenmue 1 and 2. If it had been Shenmue Trilogy enhanced announcement, I would have been, elated, and I would have been shouting from the rooftops, oh my god, this is amazing. But there's a problem there, you see, because Shenmue 1 and 2 remain with Sega, and Sega would have to be on board in order to release Shenmue 1 and 2, and to be honest, they seem to be more concentrating on Yakuza. I think the feeling within Sega is Shenmue 1 and 2 were kind of they were stepping stones in order to get to Yakuza. Yakuza feels like what they wanted Shenmue to be, or they feel Shenmue is kind of like a failed experiment, but it led on to Yakuza. And right now they seem to be right in the middle of re-releasing new versions of the Yakuza games to get us all up to speed before they presumably release a brand new Yakuza game. We've got 3 Yakuza games announced for Switch 2, and they're all remakes, and presumably there will be more coming along. So it seems unlikely that Sega will want to themselves fund and release a remake or even just a re-release of Shenmue 1 and 2, which is unfortunate, because who wants to jump into Shenmue 3 when they haven't played Shenmue 1 and 2? I don't know. But you might be going, well, okay, so why is Sega Shenmue 1 and 2, but what is Shenmue 3? It's a different company. It's In Games, Inin Games, ININ Games. I don't know how that's pronounced. I've not heard somebody say it out loud, sorry. So it's not their fault. It's not their fault, and I think it's great what they're doing. Don't get me wrong, preserving games, and especially releasing a game that had a lot of problems and trying to fix some of those problems. That's a really good thing to do for fans, but I do think it's going to have a limited market, because if you haven't played Shenmue 1 and 2, 3 is not really the place to jump in, either for the gameplay perspective or for the story perspective either. So I don't know, it's a bit of a niche market, but I hope that it gets a full physical release. I hope that it's on the cartridge, but even if it's not, I hope that it at least gets a keycard and it's not just a digital-only thing. I don't know. We don't know anything about it yet, other than the list of improvements. I know I've mentioned that 3 times. I could just read them out, but there's not much point, because I'm going to cover it properly later when they do the full announcement. Next up, before the live event actually started, we have Morsels. Morsels for Switch 1 finally got a release date, the 18th of November. If you don't remember, Morsels is a pixel art game from FRICKEN, and it's published by Annapurna, so that's a sign of quality. It was in a previous Indie World showcase, and at the time, my impressions when I watched it live were, wow, that looks absolutely delightful, very creative, very interesting, really cool, really cute. It's a top-down creature collecting game. The trailer looks super polished. I love the design of the characters and the monsters. The pixel art is great. Use of color is fantastic. However, by the end of the trailer, I was kind of less interested in it, because it's a roguelite. Now, admittedly, it's interesting combining a kind of monster catching dungeon game with a roguelite. That's interesting. But it has put me off a bit, and I didn't really look too much further into it afterwards. I know roguelites are extremely popular. For me personally, often, I'm not saying about this specific game, but often roguelites, it can feel like I would prefer if there wasn't the random element or the procedurally generated element, but each level, each area, each dungeon was specifically designed, especially for like a top-down game like this with dungeons and monster catching. It makes me think of the top-down Zelda games, and it also makes me think of, obviously, the classic Pokemon games. And I wouldn't want a classic Zelda game that was randomized, because to me, those are such a satisfying experience to play from start to finish, and everything is so well designed and so tightly designed. I actually prefer the top-down 2D tightly designed Zeldas over the more open world Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Not that Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom are bad. They're not. They're fantastic. But for me, my favorite ever Zelda game is Link's Awakening, because it's such a satisfying little experience to play from start to finish. And that's a game that I can play over and over again. I really like it. I love the story elements, etc. So I don't know, a roguelite. If a game has roguelite in the title, it really, or in the description, especially if it's one of the first things that's mentioned, it's really giving itself a hill to climb up as far as making me interested in it. But I will say, I like the idea of, dungeon crawling. It looks like there's some puzzles in there. It's a creature collecting or monster collecting game. The graphics look great. It's Annapurna, so that's a sign of quality. I'm going to wait for a review, though. But it is cool that we now have a release date. So that's cool. And what else? Oh, yeah, R-Type Delta, HD boosted. It will be playable at Gamescom. I didn't know this was a thing. Somehow this had passed me by. It's being released on November the 20th. Like I say, this had been announced and everybody already knew. So this isn't like a new announcement, but it will be playable at Gamescom. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of it. But me hearing about it, I looked more into it, and oh my god, this looks great. I really, really am a big fan of shmups, horizontal shmups, vertical shmups. I don't care. I love them all. Well, not them all, but I love all the good ones. And R-Type obviously is one of the OGs. It's probably the OG horizontally scrolling shmups of like, that was the one that everybody tried to copy from that point onwards. It's excellent. And R-Type Delta was a PS1 game in the series, and I really liked it. I know it had mixed reviews. Some people liked it, some people didn't like it. But for me, I really thought it was one of the best games in the series. I really, really, really like R-Type Delta. Sadly, I've sold my copy. But when I moved house and I had to downsize, yeah, I won't say who, but I will at least say that it went to a good home, because I sold my copy to a very, very well-known YouTuber. A very well-known retro YouTuber bought my copy off me. It was a mint copy, really nice quality, and they gave me a very, very fair price, so that's great. Usually when you get like a early 3D game, like a PS1 game, for example, and it's re-released, I get very on edge as to how it's going to look, because when you kind of emulate games of that era, that 32-bit, 64-bit era, they're very, very low poly. And then often people, when they're emulating them, they go, oh, we're going to upscale it and we're going to make, suddenly it's in 4K. Wow, look how much smoother the edges are. Oh, you can't see the pixels anymore. Yeah, okay, but it makes the low poly really obvious. And things that looked, really nice and, yeah, okay, they're a bit chunky, but there's that kind of aesthetic. It looks nice, especially for those of us who were around at the time. It's kind of nostalgic. And sometimes when you upscale too far, it can just end up looking really, really, really low poly, like everything just looks like it's made out of origami, which isn't great, especially when they go, oh, we're going to up-res the textures, or we're going to make modern new 4K textures. Okay, but you haven't increased the poly count, and suddenly, yeah, I don't know. To me, I was going to say I don't like the look. The truth is, I hate the look. It really bothers me. It kind of makes my skin crawl when I see it. But here, it looks fantastic, because because this is a shmup. All the designs are very kind of futuristic, very square, very boxy, very angular. So it doesn't matter. It's not showing up the fact that there aren't organic curves and things like this, because no, it's a bit like Star Fox, the original Star Fox. I talked about Star Fox Zero in my Drag X Drive video, and if you haven't checked it out, by the way, please go check out the Drag X Drive video. It's probably the review that I'm the most proud of, and I know that nobody cares about that game, so they're probably not going to watch it, but I honestly think it's a really interesting video and the best script that I've ever written. It's not unscripted like this one. It's a really tight script that covers a lot of Nintendo history and a lot of games industry stuff as well. Hopefully it's interesting. So please go check it out if you haven't already. Thank you if you have, by the way. Yeah, Star Fox, the original Star Fox, obviously on the Super Nintendo with the Super FX chip, was incredibly low poly, and basically no textures as well, or almost no textures, just flat shading, but really stylized, because they really made the design of the ships, the R-Wings, but also the designs of the enemies and everything purposely designed to work well with a low poly aesthetic. And because it's futuristic, you can go for that kind of angular spaceships. I mean, if you think of like the classic like Star Wars spaceships and the Star Wars vehicles, most of those are very angular in their designs. I mean, if you look at Star Trek, it's a bit different. In Star Trek, everything's a bit rounder. Like the Klingon ships are very kind of smooth, and obviously the USS Enterprise is very smooth. It's made out of circles. But Star Wars, everything's very kind of angular and cool, like edgy. Edgy, literally edgy. Everything is a sharp point or a sharp angle. So that aesthetic works really well for Star Wars with the low poly, and it works really well in this R-Type game as well. Now this was on the PS1, so the polygons are textured, but they've not gone too overboard with this. You've still got, pixels visible in the textures. And I actually think this looks really good. I actually think this looks like an improvement over the original, which is crazy for me. Usually when you get like a game, 32-bit, 64-bit 3D game, and you upscale it or you make it for a modern resolution, to me, I hate it. But no, this looks great. Obviously I mentioned Star Fox. Obviously this game is not really anything like that, other than it's spaceships with low poly models. I guess it's more like Radiant Silvergun. Radiant Silvergun is one of, if not my favorite shmup of all time. I even bought a arcade machine specifically to be able to play it at home. Sega, what's it called? Sega Titan X arcade machine. Titan X is really cool because it's kind of like an arcade version of the Sega Saturn, like the Naomi was like an arcade version of the Dreamcast, and that means that there's lots of classic Sega Saturn games available on the Titan X arcade machine. But they load off cartridges like the MVS Neo Geo arcade, so there's no loading times. So yeah, it's a really cool arcade system to collect for, because you can pick up the cartridges of classic Sega games. What have I got? I've got Steep Slope Sliders, Virtua Fighter Remix, Virtua Fighter Kids, Baku Baku Animal, which I love, Die Hard Arcade. So many Sega Titan arcade games that are great. Anyway, Radiant Silvergun, fantastic game. Probably my favorite shmup ever. But another one of my favorite shmups ever is R-Type, and I love many games in the R-Type series. And this R-Type Delta is one of the better ones. As I said, I didn't know that this was a thing until looking into what's been announced for Gamescom. I think these are the same people that did the Toa Plan collection, so there's probably a physical version of this. I really need to look into this one because, if there is, definitely going to pick it up. I hope it's not like a limited run thing and I've missed the boat already. I hope they do R-Type Leo as well. But anyway, I've probably talked way too much about this one game that many people won't care about. But if you do care about R-Type Delta, this HD boosted version looks fantastic, and it will be playable at Gamescom, so hopefully we're going to get more information. Next up, Tales of Xillia Remastered. It's Switch One only, unfortunately. We've got a release date of the 31st of October. Apparently it runs at 35 frames per second on Switch. I don't know whether it runs at a higher frame rate on the other systems. So 30 FPS is a shame, but it's, Switch One, what do you expect? And it's, it's an RPG, so you don't need, like, crazy frame rates for an RPG. It's a JRPG, so it's like turn-based stuff. I think it's turn-based anyway. I'm not entirely sure. I don't know too much about the Tales series. What I do know is I remember that the first game, Tales of Phantasia, launched in 1995 on the Super Famicom. I remember that because at the time I played a lot of JRPGs. I was really into JRPGs. I had more free time back in the day. The Super Nintendo obviously was a fantastic system for JRPGs. Many all-time classics. Some of the best RPGs of all time are available on the Super Nintendo. But many of them were, previewed in magazines, and I was looking forward to them, and then they never got translated into English. They never got a Western release. So yeah, Tales of Phantasia, I remember specifically looking forward to it, thinking it looked really good, and then it never came to the West. It was Super Famicom exclusive only. It was well, actually, no, there was an English language version available, a remake, I believe, for the GBA, and then a PSP version as well. But by that time, by the time the GBA and the PSP were around, unfortunately, well, no, not unfortunately, it was because by that point I was a father, which is not unfortunate at all. It's wonderful. My kids are the best thing that's ever happened to me. But unfortunately, I didn't have the time to sit around playing JRPGs all the time. So even though eventually we did get an English language version, I just never managed to get enough time to get around to playing it, unfortunately. But Tales of Phantasia. One thing that I remembered specifically about it was from Wolf Team, and at the time, Wolf Team was a name that I mostly associated with the Mega CD or the Sega CD. Games like the FMV games, like Cobra Command, which was like one of the launch FMV games, Road Blaster or Road Avenger, Road Blaster, which was the pack-in game for many people with their Mega CD, a port of the arcade game, but it added that iconic theme song, "Have a beer on the road, ride free," and it's everybody makes jokes because it's a Japanese person speaking English, but you can't understand what he's saying, so people make up comedy lyrics for it. But it's an all-time classic video game song. It's so catchy, it's so cool. And also the other FMV game I remember from them was Time Gal, which is one of my absolute favorite of the FMV QTE QuickTime Event games. Possibly because it's got a cute anime girl in a sexy costume, and she makes kind of sexual-ish noises when she jumps or when she gets hurt. And I was a teenager when I first played it, a young teenager. But also Time Gal is really cool because she, well, as the name implies, it's a gal who travels through time. So each level is a different time period. And as people will know, any games that involve dinosaurs are instantly 10 times cooler to me. So yeah, Time Gal, really cool. And also the Mega CD version of that was really they made more effort than many people did, because the video footage didn't look grainy like most video footage looks, because what they did was, instead of just converting the original Laserdisc footage to grainy FMV, no, they redrew each individual frame of animation and recolored it. So they redrew it to fit the exact resolution, and they recolored it to fit the color limitations. So it looked really, really good for an FMV game. But I mean, it's still an FMV game, there's only so much gameplay you can get out of them. But I really liked Time Gal, and I've still got a lot of fondness for it now. Nowadays, obviously, you can play the Laserdisc version using Daphne on the PC. But really, really cool. But they didn't just make FMV games. I remember their name being attached to Soulface or Souldice, depending on what region you're in. And that was, again, a side-scrolling shmup that is very much like R-Type. It's pretty good. I liked it. And also Dino Land Pinball. A pinball game. I don't remember it being a particularly good pinball game, but again, as I said, if something involves dinosaurs, it's automatically 10 times cooler to me. And also, I associate Wolf Team's name with the Valis series. I think Valis originated on MSX, but I played the Mega Drive and PC Engine versions, and it was a series. There's Valis 2, Valis 3, 4. I like the Valis series a lot. Really, really cool. I know a lot of collectors are really into those games. They also made Ernest Evans, which wasn't great at all, but it was a really cool idea. It had a very kind of unique method for the time of drawing the sprite graphics. I think it was Mega CD game, or was it Genesis Mega Drive game? I think it was Mega CD. Anyway, each limb of the character is animated separately and rotates, and therefore there's kind of physics and kind of ragdoll physics, but with a 2D character. It's a cool idea. Very, very clunky in practice. I'm sure there's some people that really like it. For me, it didn't feel very fun to play. But yeah, it was unique, and I remember it, and I remember it having a Wolf Team logo. And I always kind of wondered what happened to Wolf Team. But apparently what happens is they eventually changed their name to Namco Tales Studio because they were sold to Namco. And then obviously nowadays it's Namco Bandai. But it's now called Namco Tales Studio, and they exclusively make Tales games. I knew that there'd been a few. I wasn't aware there's actually 17 games in the Tales series, and similar to like I was talking about the other day with Persona and Shin Megami Tensei, there's many remakes, remasters, re-releases of the Tales series. Quite complicated, quite confusing when I looked at it. I personally remember Tales of Destiny and Tales of Eternia being on PS1, because I remember, again, at the time for the PS1, I was still playing RPGs by that point. I hadn't quite had my kids by PS1 days, although not long after, because I started quite early. I played a lot of RPGs on the PS1, but frankly, there was a richness of RPGs, and it was impossible to play all of them. I spent most of my time with Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9, Suikoden, Grandia, and the Saturn, and RPGs on the Saturn as well. Anyway, I'm wasting time. Basically, I knew that those two games were on PS1, but I never actually played them. And I knew that Tales of Symphonia on GameCube is one of the most popular cult games on the system. It's very, very expensive to pick up. So I've never played a Tales game. But I'm very, very aware of the series existing. Xillia itself, it came out in 2011. Apparently, it's the 13th game in the 17 kind of main games. It was originally a PS3 exclusive, which kind of explains why I hadn't really heard of it, because I wasn't a big PS3 guy. I was mostly just Nintendo by that point. And the PS3 and 360 era is when kind of AAA games started to lose me a little bit, because everything felt a little bit grey, a little bit brown, a little bit too serious. FPS games, previously I'd loved FPS games like Doom and Duke Nukem 3D and but I don't know, everything was being a little bit too realistic and a little bit too taking itself too seriously by that point. I know some people absolutely loved the 360 and PS3 generation, but for me I owned both consoles, but it was just very specific games that I would play for those consoles, like basically, my PS3 was a Little Big Planet and Last of Us machine. But yeah, the reception for Xillia, however, was extremely positive in Japan. Famitsu gave it the Award of Excellence, and it won gold at the PlayStation Awards that year. It also got 4 separate manga adaptations. It got novels. It even got 5 audio dramas on CD, which I didn't even know was a thing, but that's pretty cool. I guess they're like, radio plays. I'm making myself sound old now, but yeah, back in the day, you used to be able to turn on the radio and listen to an exclusive Doctor Who episode that was just audio only. So I guess, yeah, kind of like that. So that's pretty cool. The English translation, when released in the West, got mostly good reviews, though it doesn't look like it was quite as big a phenomena as it was in Japan. As I said, I wasn't really a big PS3 guy for the most part, so I don't actually remember. Watching the trailer, the 2D anime graphics look absolutely fantastic. This is really cool anime animation. 3D graphics, I gotta be honest, they look rough by comparison, especially the facial animation. But it does mention on the official website that there is so many quality of life improvements and balancing over the original. So I'm sure if you're a fan of the original, this will be a great way to replay. And if you've never played it before, maybe this is the time to jump on board, because it is a very well-respected game. And this, by all accounts, is probably going to be the best version of it. To me, as regular listeners will know, I don't have enough time to play very many RPGs, so I have to be very, very selective. Frankly, I don't think this is my time to jump into the Tales series, but I do respect it. I know it's a long-running series. I remember being really interested in it back in the day. I've actually got a lot of kind of fondness and nostalgia for wanting to play Tales of Phantasia and then being disappointed when it didn't get a Western release on the SNES. So yeah, it's all good. That's a good announcement, but it wasn't part of the actual live show. So now we can move into the actual live show portion of this video. Right, like I said, I didn't watch the live show while it was running, and I still haven't now. Frankly, I don't want to watch 3 hours worth of stuff just to get maybe half an hour's worth of stuff that I actually care about. Mind you, as I said, in previous years, I always have watched Gamecom, and to be honest, I always enjoy it. It feels like a celebration of the industry, and I, make a bit of an event of it. I get pizza in, maybe have some friends around, we have a beer, or last year, my mother was ill, unfortunately, but we sat and watched it together while I was helping look after her and things, and she was like really impressed too, and I was quite proud. I could say to her, like, yeah, look what a big deal the games industry is. Look what a celebration of the games industry this is. And and I could explain to her, look, the games industry makes more money than the film industry and TV and music all combined. The game industry is a really big thing. It's just that for some reason people don't respect it as much, but it is building it. And I do think Geoff always puts on a good show. It's just that there's a lot of stuff that I don't care about, and at the moment I'm so busy. I'm so snowed under. I'm right in the middle of trying to get my Kirby's Air Ride video out. And of course, now we're going to have, Gamescom Night 2, Night 3, Night 4. If they keep releasing this many announcements that I care about, I'm going to have to make, a new over an hour long video every single day. And that's going to kill me. But we will see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. I think the way that I'm going to do this is I looked up on Nintendo Life. Again, shout to Nintendo Life. I know some of those guys in real life, and they're lovely. But very helpful website for me in this case, because they have an excellent article which has all the Nintendo announcements. So I'm just going to go down them in the same order that they are in the Nintendo Life article. And which I assume is the order that they were announced in the show itself, but I don't actually know. They're not in alphabetical order, so I would assume that's what they've done. And I haven't watched any of these trailers. Obviously, I do know what the games are, so I'm not going to be surprised by the announcement, but I haven't watched any of the trailers because I wanted to put them here and react to them in real time and then talk about them. So the first one is Bubsy 4D. Bubsy 4D. For both Switch 1 and 2. We don't know if there's going to be a physical version. We don't know a release date. Bubsy 4D, it made me giggle when I saw that announcement. I was like, oh my goodness, okay, we're doing this again, are we? Okay. Bubsy the Bobcat is something that I could talk about this for like at least half an hour, 45 minutes right now, going over my opinions of Bubsy and the Bubsy series and all of the Bubsy games. But I won't, because A, this is going to be a long video already, and B, I think it would make a good separate video. Maybe I'll do a history of Bubsy when I do a review of the game, or maybe I'll do a preview and we'll talk about it first. I don't know. But Bubsy is a really, really interesting subject. To briefly sum it up, people remember Bubsy now as this joke. It's become a meme. And like people, the Bubsy games are the worst games ever. Bubsy's the worst mascot character ever. If you were around at the time when Bubsy was launching, nobody felt like that. Literally nobody felt like that at the time when it was about to launch. The previews and everything, there was so much hype, and the character was being built up. It was being advertised to kids everywhere. They fully expected that there was going to be a TV series, and there was going to be comics, and there was going to be an animated series, and they were going to do merchandise with plushies and action figures. They really thought this was going to be huge, and they obviously spent a lot of money to hype it up in all the gaming magazines and gaming TV shows. And honestly, the character himself is pretty appealing. It's a really nicely drawn character in the original art. They got great designers in. There was that kind of Sonic style irreverent humor, but there was voice samples, so he actually made jokes and references and things, and everybody thought this is going to be really cool. And it was an obvious Sonic clone, but that wasn't necessarily a bad thing at the time, because Sonic was the new hotness. Like, everybody was trying to make a Sonic clone, and people who loved Sonic games, myself included, were just, hyped to play more games that were like Sonic if they were good. And there are many mascots that came out at the time that had good games, and Bubsy looked like it was going to be one of those good games. And when the first Bubsy game came out, also it was on Mega Drive, Genesis, and Super Nintendo as well. So obviously having a Sonic competitor that was available on the Nintendo system was a big deal at the time as well, because a lot of, Super Nintendo owners were like kind of jealous of the fact that the Mega Drive Genesis people had Sonic, because at the time there was really nothing quite like it on the Super Nintendo. I mean, afterwards there was, obviously, because as I said, everybody tried to copy it. But yeah, the first game, people who owned a Super Nintendo were really, really looking forward to it and really wanted to convince themselves that it was as good, if not better, than Sonic. And people who owned a Mega Drive Genesis who loved Sonic just wanted more Sonic. So there was a lot of hype for the first Bubsy game. And when it came out, you know what? It's not bad. It's not bad. Yeah, it's not perfect. There's flaws. There's a little too many kind of times when you have unfair deaths. There's bottomless pits, or there's, it encourages you to move fast, but it also has enemy placements where you just constantly run into enemies. So it is extremely frustrating when you first start playing it, but it's one of those games that there's a lot to like about it. The presentation is good, the design of the character is good, the music is good, the graphics are good, the physics and everything work well. So it's one of those games, yes, you will die all the time and there's unfair deaths, but if you persevere with it, which back in the day, games were expensive, and you didn't get a chance to own very many games unless your parents were like super rich. So if you had a game, even if it wasn't perfect, you kind of forced yourself to like it. So there was a lot of kids who really wanted Bubsy, and then they bought Bubsy, and yeah, okay, it was a bit frustrating, but there's things to like about it, so you stick with it. And it's one of those games that when you learn it, when you know where the enemies are going to be, when you know the level layout, it's actually a really good game. There's a lot to like about it. It's really well designed. It's really nice. Yes, as I said, it's not perfect. It's not flawless. Absolutely not. There's plenty of stuff wrong with it, but it's not a terrible game. In fact, it's one of the better Sonic clones. There was many, many much worse Sonic clones. So for this to be remembered as one of the worst games of all time is simply rewriting history. Now, the character himself, yeah, he can get a little bit annoying because, yes, he did tell all those jokes and had voice samples and things like this. But, this was back in the day of, the 16-bit systems with very limited cartridge space. So he ended up repeating the same lines of dialogue over and over again, which did become very frustrating very quickly. A joke is funny the first time you hear it, but you don't want to hear that same joke over and over again. So, but then that kind of became part of his endearing character. After a while, he's this kind of wisecracking, kind of corny character. But yeah, Bubsy 1, not a bad game. The problem is, it went downhill from there. Bubsy 2, everybody was pretty hyped for Bubsy 2 still. Because they thought, well, the first game was good. Yes, there was flaws, but they're going to learn from their mistakes, and they're going to build on what was good, and Bubsy 2 is going to be even better. No, it wasn't. It was worse. It was actively worse. There was an exclusive Bubsy 2D platformer on the Atari Jaguar, which at the time we were being told was a 64-bit next-gen system and was being hyped out the wazoo of, oh, this is next-gen gaming. And in the screenshots, the exclusive Bubsy game looked really cool. The graphics looked amazing with all the extra colors and kind of hand-drawn, hand-painted stuff rather than tile-based backgrounds. But no, it's even worse. It's even worse. It's an absolutely terrible platform game, unfortunately. So really, the game's got worse and worse and worse from Bubsy 1 onwards. So it started in quite a good state, and it just got worse and worse. And then you had Bubsy 3D. Now, Bubsy 3D, that is the game that made everybody say, oh, Bubsy is the worst mascot of all time. Bubsy, no, you're right, okay, because Bubsy 3D is just notoriously bad. It's one of those games alongside kind of, E.T. for the 2600 or Superman 64. It's one of those games that if you say, what are the worst games of all time, people will always mention Bubsy 3D. And a near infinite amount of YouTubers have made comedy in inverted commas videos talking about how terrible it is. And when I say that, I'm not shitting on people like ABGN or whatever. No, I mean people who think they're funny but aren't. I like some angry comedy gamers, but it just became a thing that everybody tried to copy ABGN. And if you're going to do that, and if you're going to try and find a game to be angry about, Bubsy 3D is one of the games that everybody will make a video about. Oh, I'm going to play this game. Oh, I hope it's good. Oh, it's not. And here's the thing, like Bubsy 3D, is it a good game? No, absolutely not. But I kind of feel sorry for the developers of it because they've talked about this and they're like, okay, this was before 3D platformers existed. This was one of the very, very, very first 3D platform games ever made. It came out on the PlayStation 1. It was one of the earliest games on the PlayStation 1. Long before something like Crash Bandicoot or Spyro the Dragon, even before Croc. This was like one of the very, very first 3D platform games on the PlayStation 1, and just one of the very first 3D platform games ever. And nobody really knew how to make a 3D platform game at the time, so there was a lot of experimentation. Like if you remember Jumping Flash, for example, that was a kind of attempt at a 3D platform game. It was really weird, but kind of cool. But obviously, it was Mario 64 that came out that made everybody go, yes, that's how you're supposed to do it. And then everything after Mario 64 copied Mario 64. But this started development before Mario 64. There wasn't analog controls either. That people forget. The original PlayStation, when it first launched in 1994, it didn't have an analog stick on the controller. It only had a D-pad. So, yeah, okay, Bubsy has tank controls rather than analog controls, but that's because there literally wasn't an analog stick on the controller at the time. Now, is it a good game? No, it's really clunky. It's really bad, especially when you compare it to later PS1 games. Once the developers has actually got a hang of it, and you compare the graphics to something like Spyro or Crash. I mean, it looks awful. It looks more like a Super Nintendo Super Effects game, funnily enough. There's a lot of flat shaded polygons and stuff. But I feel sorry for Bubsy 3D because it really was trying to invent something new, trying to push the genre forward, or trying to create a new genre. And if you read the interviews with the developers they say, like, before their game came out, they were feeling quite good about it. They were quite proud of what they'd made. They thought, yeah, we're really pushing the boundaries here. This is a new frontier, and everybody's going to look at this and go, oh, wow, a platform game in 3D. What a great novelty. And then they saw a preview of Mario 64, and they realized that their game was not even 1% as good or as not good looking or as playable or as smooth or as well designed as Mario 64, and they knew that their game was going to come out around about the same time, and they just instantly knew, okay, people are going to laugh at our game is just going to look embarrassingly outdated. Even though we thought we were pushing the boundaries, we had no idea what was possible. And I as a game dev myself, I completely understand that. In fact, one of the reasons why I got out of the gaming industry, I've been programming games since the 1980s. I was very lucky. My dad taught me to program when I was a young child. And back in the day, in the 80s, you could literally get games that would come out in the shop shelves that were literally programmed by one kid in their bedroom, you know? And many of those kids are now working for companies like Rockstar, etc. Yeah, I got out of the gaming industry in late 90s, early 2000s, because by that point, everything was the tech was evolving so quickly that it was impossible for me to keep up with what was expected and what was fashionable. There was new 3D game engines and new tech and new shaders and stuff. Literally every month there would be a brand new game coming out that would make last month's game look out of date. And for a solo developer like me, somebody who wanted full creative control to come up with a cool idea and spend, years crafting my passion project, it just wasn't possible to be in the games industry at that time. Because, of course, you've got to remember this was before Flash games, before mobile games. I mean, there were some kind of Java games, but they were terrible. But before before the iPhone and decent Android made decent mobile games possible, there was just no way to get an indie game out there that was a simple kind of solo passion project. And thankfully now there is. So now, because of the COVID lockdowns and me having more time on my hands when I couldn't work on movies, I've got back into games dev, which is great. And I'm so happy to have done so. But and this is why I'm so passionate about supporting indie devs, especially solo devs or small passionate teams making cool, weird indie projects or retro aesthetic things. I love that. So yeah, I was literally getting out of the games industry at around about this time, or a few years after, but soon after. And I completely understand, what the devs are saying. They thought that they were really technologically pushing the boundaries of what was possible on the PlayStation, and then just like, I don't know, 2-3 months later you got Croc, and then 2-3 months later you got Crash Bandicoot, and Bubsy 3D compared to those games looks awful, and compared to Super Mario 64, I mean, there's just no comparison, is there? So, yeah, Bubsy 3D, it's fun to point and laugh, but at the time, the devs really they didn't have something to copy, and they really were starting from nothing and trying to work out what to do. So it's a really interesting game. But yeah, if you want me to do a full deep dive history of the Bubsy games, because there have been other Bubsy games as well, not just the ones that I've mentioned, and really go into it, and yeah, I'd love to do that, like I did with my Shantae, like I did with my Shantae retrospective. But yeah, I saw, obviously, so Bubsy 3D. Now this new game is called Bubsy 4D. So I haven't watched the trailer yet. I imagine what they're going to do is they're going to lean into the meme side of it of, oh, wasn't Bubsy 3D such a terrible game? But now we're going to make a new 3D platformer, and maybe this one will be good. I imagine that's what they're going to do. As I said, I've not watched the trailer. I did see the thumbnail. I don't like the art of the thumbnail. To me, that doesn't look like Bubsy. It's not a badly drawn picture, but they've changed a lot of the proportions of his face and things. I know he's meant to be older now, but I don't know. It just looks a bit off to me. But I do think it's cool that there's a new Bubsy game. So let's watch the trailer. I hope it's good, and I'll let you know what I think. Bubsy 3D live reaction.
Yo, remember me? Your old pal Bubsy?
Okay.
Oh, those classic games you loved.
Yeah, that's what I thought they were going to do. I don't. Oh, I don't like his design. Maybe I can get used to it. Okay. That's interesting, the way they've turned the exclamation mark into a tie.
This I like.
Oh, those are the Daemon. God, what was it called? I don't hate this. Coyote time. Nice. Okay, that's a cool feature. Yeah, these levels look kind of similar to the Bubsy 3D levels, but good. Oh, there's some Sonic Lost World going on there. Interesting. I'm one of the few people that actually like that game. Oh, that's cool. That's cool that you can actually have the PS1 character design. Is it wrong that I much prefer the PS1 character design than the modern one?
You know I've only got one brain cell, right? And it's working overtime on this baby.
What?
Atari? I didn't even know they were still around.
Right. Okay. I have thoughts. Okay. Right. So, first, I could go off on a massive tangent about this, but I won't. Atari, I didn't know they were still around. They're not. They're not. I'm sorry. Any game that has an Atari logo at the beginning has zero to do with Nolan Bushnell, has zero to do with the Atari 2600, has zero to do with the Atari Lynx or Jaguar. They aren't. That name, that brand name, that it's just a logo at this point, has been sold and repackaged and passed through so many hands over the years. There's been so many stupid products with the Atari logo on it. It's been completely desecrated. However, the current owners of Atari, the Atari trademark, have been putting it on some decent games and have been putting out some decent products, and some of the more recent products have been really quite good. Atari 50 was a fantastic collection, and some of the recent hardware releases have been okay, and some truly great games with the Atari logo attached. So I'm not shitting on the current iteration of the company, but it's not Atari. It's not. It's not. It's making me think of Perifractic Retro Recipes guy, who I've sort of had interaction with a few times because we both work on Star Wars projects and stuff, and him and his wife Orly, they're perfectly nice people. He's recently bought Commodore, so it's like, okay, we are now Commodore, and it's like, are you really Commodore? But it's a lot. To be fair to them, it's a lot more Commodore than the current Atari is Atari, because at least they've gone out of their way to contact as many people from the original Commodore days and the original Amiga days, and at least have them on board as consultants, do a few Zoom calls and things, to at least kind of make sure that they're okay with what's happening. So it's not really Commodore, is it? But it's more Commodore than Atari is Atari, if you know what I mean. Again, I'm not, like I say, no shade to Perry and Perifractic and Lady Fractic, or no shade to them at all. I'm sure they're great. They're great people, and they do great work on the Star Wars projects, and so we don't know each other, but we're in the same orbit. That was just one of many. I know it's a joke. I'm taking it too seriously. That was one of many jokes. I did hear quite a few little jokes and quips and things in there. I didn't react to many of them. None of them made me laugh, but I purposely didn't react to any of them because I didn't want to be too snarky. Kind of the whole point, I'm guessing, from the way that they're pitching it, is he makes cringy dad jokes. I don't think it's meant to be hilarious comedy writing. I think they're leaning into the fact that in the original games, and especially in Bubsy 3D, because with Bubsy 3D it was like, we've got PlayStation now, we don't have the limitations of a cartridge, we've got a CD, so we can have Bubsy can talk as much as we want, and in that game he just never shut up. And again, even though you have more storage space, when you're playing a game, it's going to be repeating the same clips over and over again, and it was just like, why don't you shut up? So Bubsy became infamous not for being a funny comedian like he was intended to be, but he became infamous for making the same repeated cringy jokes over and over again. So I understand that the trailer is going to have a lot of kind of cringy dad jokes because they're going to be leaning into that. But what didn't quite sit right with me was like how he was constantly insulting himself. Like he made like a joke about him having no brain cells and things like that. I don't like that. I'm fond of Bubsy, and a lot of people are fond of Bubsy, and that's why he can keep coming back. This isn't the first modern Bubsy game. There has been attempts before. And there is still an audience for Bubsy, and I don't think it's just the meme audience of, oh, this game's going to be terrible, let's laugh at it. No, I think there's a lot of people who actually are fond of Bubsy and want to see the character in a good game. So to have him like insulting himself is, I don't know, that doesn't quite sit right with me. It's not self-deprecating. It feels a bit mean-spirited. I don't know. Maybe I'll rewatch. I've only watched the trailer once. Maybe if I rewatched it again, I would feel differently. But that's just my first reactions. Now, as I said, the designs of the levels, or the designs of some of the levels, do actually look very similar to what they were going for in Bubsy 3D, but obviously with much better tech. So nowadays they can have a better draw distance, a higher poly count, a smoother frame rate. They can design things better. They can put more textures on. But I did think it was kind of cool how they've obviously at least taken some inspiration from Bubsy 3D and gone, okay, what were the devs trying to achieve? Let's be fair to them. What were they trying to achieve? Can we recreate that, but with the benefits of modern technology and make it better? And as I said, there was also elements in there of, I saw kind of Sonic Lost World style tube levels, and I don't know, the platforming looked good. It's developed by Fabraz, who did, I was trying to remember the name of it, but it has come to me now. They did Demon Turf, didn't they? And Demon Turf was a very, very solid 3D platformer from a few years back. On the Switch. It was interesting because the main character was 2D, like drawn 2D and animated 2D, but moving in 3D. But it was cool. So yeah, there's some good heritage there. I thought it kind of made sense, but it's also kind of sad that it looked like Bubsy has some kind of like PTSD from being in Bubsy 3D. Like he's looking back on it and being like, oh god, that was like one of the worst times of my life. And you know, fair to be honest, we all do. Anybody who's tried to play that game, even if you try to be fair to it, even if you try and give it a chance, it is an exercise in frustration. I know I was being quite kind to it when I was talking about it, but it's just because I said nice things about the developers doesn't mean that what they made was a good game. No, it's a terrible game. An interesting game, a historically interesting game, and to be fair to them, it was pushing boundaries for the time, but just one of those things best left in the past, you know. In his new design, the exclamation point that was on his t-shirt has now become a tie, and he's wearing like a kind of white jacket, kind of looking a bit kind of 80s Miami Vice. I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of cool. It looks a bit like guy in his mid-30s to 40s having a midlife crisis, which is kind of what I felt like earlier when I was having a complete breakdown and nearly crying about Sonic and Pac-Man being together. But yeah, I liked the coyote time. That's really cool. And I liked a lot of the options that I saw, a lot of the personalization stuff, a lot of the character customization. It's really, really neat that they've got the PlayStation style Bubsy 3D model. You can play as him if you want to. And that's really cool because it's kind of like writing history, isn't it? It's kind of writing a wrong of history. It's going, okay, let's take that character and let's put him in a actually good game. Because to be fair, this does look like an actually good game, but I still winced a little bit. I said I didn't like I didn't like the box art that was on the thumbnail, but I also really don't like that 3D animated Bubsy that they're using, and therefore the player model is just, they've redesigned him, but they've taken so much away from what made the design unique and cool in the first place. As I said, the design of that character was crucial as to why so many kids were hyped for that game before it came out, because it was a really cool character. I remember I, taught myself how to draw him, and I would draw him and Sonic and Mario and Zool, all being friends together, because it was a cool design. And they've just... Ew. They've made his eyes smaller, they've made the orange part of his head wider, and they've made his tufts smaller, So he now looks like a kind of weird off-brand Garfield or Heathcliff, but just not. And I really don't like it. I just don't. It's not going to stop me from playing the game, because obviously when you're playing a 3D platform game, it's, you're behind the character anyway. It's not going to be looking right at him. And I don't know. You could argue, oh, well, he's much older now. He's meant to be an adult, and that's why his proportions of his face have changed, and that's why his hairstyle has changed. And it just doesn't look like Bubsy to me. Bubsy was a cool, fairly unique for the time design, or at least fairly distinctive design. Some of you will know that I've done animation training, and I worked with Don Bluth for 2 years, and Richard Williams, and many other people from Disney and things at the time. And one of the things that they all would emphasize over and over and over again about cartoon character design is good cartoon character design. If you had just a silhouette, just a black shadow, just a silhouette, just an outline of a character, A, could you tell which character it was? And B, from the pose, could you tell what kind of mood that character's in or what they're doing, right? So good character design is a combination of having enough unique elements of that design that they would be quickly readable if you saw an outline of them. And then appeal with that character is to put them in a pose that doesn't just feel like a stock T-pose, that actually feels dynamic and feels like they're standing in a way that is unique to that character, right? And that's exactly the opposite of what we got here. What we got here was a character that if you drew an outline of it, it would be literally any anthropomorphic character with cat ears. Literally any. There's nothing unique about it. And he was just stood there in the most boring default pose. Could even be, motion tracked and not even properly animated. They just stood him in a stock pose and then put motion trackers on you can do facial motion tracking with an iPhone nowadays, and you can do body motion tracking with a bloody webcam. It's so simple nowadays to animate something if you don't care about the appeal of the animation, and there was nothing appealing about his animation. The script was okay. As I said, there's elements about the script that I didn't like. The voice acting was fine. His voice is fine. I don't know whether it's the original voice actor or not. I don't know enough about it. I could look it up. But it sounded okay. It sounded like Bubsy. Yeah, sure. But they butchered the character design, and there was nothing appealing about how they animated him for those cutscenes. I don't know what the budget was. Maybe the budget is really low, and I've said this before, like especially when I was talking about Shadow Labyrinth, I really went into this. I hate criticizing the work of other artists, because whenever I do, I know that somebody will have worked really, really hard on it. But it's just not good. I'm sorry. This isn't good. This is objectively not good. This is everything that when you're in any kind of design school for animation or character design, this is the opposite of what they teach you to do. Now, sometimes, you break the rules to invent something new, yes, but that's absolutely not what they've done here. This is as bland and generic as it possibly could have been. The gameplay, however, looks good. Gameplay looks good, and I'm glad that this exists. It's out on Switch 1 and Switch 2, and obviously other consoles as well. It's not a Nintendo exclusive, unfortunately. We don't have a release date for it yet, but I will be looking out for it. We don't have any information on a physical release. If there is a physical release, especially if it's a Switch 2 physical release, I will buy this without question. I'm a big 3D platformer guy. This looks like the platforming itself is going to be fun. Just for the sake of, I have fondness for the character, I own copies of every single Bubsy game that's ever come out. I will buy this one as well, as long as there's a physical version. If it's digital download only, it's going to be a bit of a hard sell for me, and it will depend what the price is. But I really hope that there's a physical version. Obviously, I hope that there's a physical version for the Switch 2 with the game actually on the cartridge, and it isn't like a code in a box or a game key card, but that remains to be seen. But either way, I'm glad there's a Switch 2 version. if there's a physical version, I will be buying it. And in the meantime, if you want me to do a proper deep dive history of Bubsy, like I just did with my deep dive 2-hour-long history of Shantae, if you haven't watched that, I highly recommend going to check it out, because Shantae series, every game in that series is good, and also the history of the character and also what the games have meant for Nintendo history along the way is really interesting. And of course, yesterday or the day before, depending on when you listen to it, we've just got a brand new Shantae game that has been released right now. It's actually out immediately right now. So yeah, go check out my Shantae video if you haven't already. But yeah, if you want me to do a similar type deep dive but into the history of Bubsy, I actually think that there's some really interesting stuff to talk about. I'm not going to do a full tier list for this yet. I'll wait until Gamescom is finished and then do my full kind of, okay, let's rate them all in order. But yeah, if I was going to give a tier list, kind of just where would I place it, what tier would I place it in, but I'm not going to be ranking, but what tier would I place it in? I'm going to say this, being that it was an announcement, as far as I know, we didn't know this before, I'm going to say this is an A tier announcement. It's a character that I love. There's cool elements. It's from a developer that I trust. It's Switch 1 and 2. I can't give it an S tier because, frankly, that character model is awful. Until we know whether there's physical, I don't know whether I'm going to bother giving it the time of day of buying it. I probably will. If it's digital only and it's cheap, I probably will. Or if it's full price and it's physical, I probably will. But yeah, no, A tier. It's a 3D platform game. It's a series that I care about. We didn't know about it before, so it's an A tier announcement. Next up, Outlaws and Handful of Missions Remaster. This is a good one. It's only on the Switch 1, unfortunately. Switch 2 version would have been nice, but considering the issues at the moment, at the current state of putting out physical games, I understand. We don't know if there's going to be a physical version of this, but I would absolutely imagine that there will be a physical version for Switch 1 for this, because it's a remaster of a classic game. They know that collectors are going to want to buy this. We don't have a release date. It's 2025. So again, ironically, maybe, coming straight after the Atari, I didn't know they were still around. This also has an Atari logo at the beginning. Again, as I said, the current version of Atari is nothing to do with the Atari of old. But I do think that they're putting their name on a lot of cool games. So that probably means that they are helping a lot of cool games get funded. So kudos to whoever owns the new current iteration of the Atari brand. So what is Outlaws, if you don't know? It is a LucasArts game from 1997. For some of you, that's all you need to know, because LucasArts, maybe I'm biased because nowadays I work alongside Lucasfilm on some project, and I'm a big Star Wars fan, and maybe so maybe I'm biased, but no, back in the day, in the 90s, if something had LucasArts on it, even if you had no idea what the property was, even if you'd never heard of it, just seeing LucasArts on the front of it basically told you that it was going to be a quality product and absolutely worth your money. It was, at the time, it was basically like seeing Konami or Capcom written on something. It meant, no, this is a quality game. And yeah, Outlaws is great. Uniquely at the time, most LucasArts games were kind of adventures, point-and-click adventures style games, but they were starting to branch out into more kind of more 3D stuff. There was, some 3D Star Wars games and things at the same time. And Outlaws is a first-person shooter. And I mentioned FPSs earlier, and I said I'm not really into FPSs nowadays. Modern AAA FPSs, just they really don't appeal to me. They're like the opposite of what appeals to me, to be honest with you. A lot of them, the online-only stuff, where COD is, Black Ops, and Siege and stuff, they're not for me. If you like those games, great, but just they're not my style of game at all. But I did mention that the early FPS games, like the very first kind of FPS games, games like Castle Wolfenstein and Doom especially, and Quake and Duke Nukem 3D and all those kind of Rise of the Triad, and there's so many. There was so many at the time. I'm still thinking of examples in my head that are still popping in, but if I just keep doing that, I'll just list even more. I could list another 20. But yeah, it seemed like every new FPS game that was coming out at that time was introducing something new. And Outlaws was really unique at the time because it had a Western theme. and a proper full-on story. I mean, the LucasArts games were often known for their stories, and also often known for their amazing art and amazing hand-drawn animation. And this basically is an adventure in kind of like a Western with all the cowboy tropes, with beautiful hand-animated and voice-acted cutscenes. But then the gameplay is a first-person shooter. But rather than being a futuristic first-person shooter like so many games that were copying Doom, no, this was like a Western first-person shooter. And at the time, it was just a real novelty. And then there was an expansion pack, as they were called back then. It wasn't DLC because there was no downloading. It was an expansion pack, handful of missions, which comes from like fistful of dollars and things like that. It's a pun. Handful of missions. So yeah, this is a remaster of what was an excellent game, and nowadays is considered a cult classic. It's not as well remembered as many of their earlier games, but no, yeah, I can absolutely tell you that the original is an excellent game. And this remaster comes from Night Dive. So Night Dive have done many recent remasters. I was particularly pleased that they did that they brought back Doom 64, because Doom 64 was a game that, frankly, on the original N64, I was so hyped for. I was so looking forward to that game, and then I'm glad that I rented it, because I was all ready to drop, I think it was 70 or maybe even £80 for it at the time, and I would have been so disappointed, because it's incredibly dark. Like on my television at the time, my CRT television, I just couldn't see what was going on. So I rented it and then I returned it the next day, and I thought, oh, well, thank God I didn't buy that. However, apparently the reason that happened was because the developers of it didn't develop it testing it on normal TVs, which is crazy. They played it on like a development monitor, which had a lot higher dynamic range and was a lot brighter, and somehow that game got released in a way that was almost unplayable on a lot of contemporary TVs at the time, which is just crazy that even managed to happen somehow. But underlying that, if you actually can play it, and obviously I played it later in emulation, where you can fix those problems, Doom 64 is great. The level design is amazing. It's more of an almost kind of puzzle game, puzzle style Doom layouts, the levels. It's not so much of a full-on action as before, but it's really good. It's one of the best Doom games in my opinion. So Night Dive did a fantastic version of that, and many other recent remasters and re-releases of long forgotten but high quality games. Right, so I'm hoping this is going to be good. Let's watch the trailer. I'll react to it, and I'll let you know what I think. Atari. Who knew they were still around? LucasArts, the classic old logo. Night Dive, fair play.
You're free to die, kid.
Oh, nice. So they've taken the original hand-drawn animation. This is the original animation, but it's not upscaled. It's not AI upscaled. This looks like they've taken the original art and gone back to it and fully, because in the original there's a lot of compression artifacting, so you can't just take the original video. Yeah, you see what I mean? The voice acting and the animation is fantastic. To go to all that effort for an FPS game. Right, yeah, so here's the gameplay. Whoever's playing this is terrible. They're not shooting any of the enemies. They missed every shot. They're like stormtroopers. This does have the problem that I was mentioning earlier when I was talking about R-Type, of when you have a very low poly game, but then you put it at super high res, everything looks a little bit just like cardboard boxes. So maybe it would be nice if they have like a low res filter that you can put on. I hope that they do. But yeah, okay. So we've finished. So let's talk about it. Right. yeah, my overall impression is good. I'm really glad that it's happened because this is an excellent game, and having a way to easily play it in modern times is really, really cool. I absolutely love what they've done to the hand-drawn animation. It looks like they've literally gone back frame for frame and taken the original drawings, or the original, I assume they were digital drawings, but and got the very best quality out of the original files possible, because in the original game it wasn't that. It was like AVI files or something equivalent of the time, low resolution video files with lots and lots and lots of compression artifacting, and you just can't take that and use an AI upscaler to clean it and make it look as good as that looked there. No, we had crispy pixels there. That looked, the animation just looked gorgeous. So I'm really, really hyped that it's been paid such attention to, and obviously they've somehow managed to get the original files. Or if they didn't, what they've done is if they couldn't get the original files, what they've done is they've gone through frame by frame and rotoscoped over the original. But no, it doesn't look like that. Those look like the original art to me. So that is fantastic. Kudos to them. That is amazing. And kudos to LucasArts for letting them go through the archives and have access to the original files. Yeah, the gameplay itself, that's where I start to go, oh, do I actually want to play this? I don't know, because for me personally, as I said, it kind of bothers me when you have a low resolution, low poly game that previously, used to run at 320 by 240 or whatever. It's great to suddenly have it in widescreen. That's fantastic. Having the extra field of view is great. So that's a nice upgrade. But when you take like that really low poly look, and then you make it super high resolution, like at 4K, and everything's like super clean, so there's no pixels visible. Everything just looks a little bit like cardboard boxes or origami, and it just really emphasizes how low poly everything is. It looks like they'd redrawn all the textures to make them kind of nice. But again, if you have like the low res textures and the pixely textures, it looks a bit more authentic. Whereas having the super high resolution and the super high resolution textures, but the super low poly models, to me, it's a little bit jarring. It's very smooth. It's very lovely. It looked like it was running absolutely perfectly. So from a gameplay perspective, it's going to play very well. As I said, the underlying game is really good. I can absolutely recommend the game, and I'm sure that Night Dive have done a fantastic job with it. It's just, for me, the aesthetic, I'm not sure I like the way it looks, and the super high res, everything redrawn, but you still have low polys. It just looks a bit weird to me. But maybe I'll get used to it. And it certainly is a fun game, and having a new way to play it is really good. Yeah, the other thing that I noticed, though, whoever was playing the footage in the trailer, they're terrible. I don't think they hit a single shot, or they did. They shot a bottle. They shot a bottle and they managed to get the bottle, but they didn't shoot a single enemy. I can only assume that the reason for that is for censorship reasons. They didn't want the trailer to be censored on YouTube, or they didn't want the trailer to get an age rating. So, but it looks silly, doesn't it? It looks silly to have somebody shooting a gun like 50 times and not hitting a single enemy. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just that they haven't redrawn the frames of animation for the enemies yet, and that's why. Or they haven't even programmed the hit collision yet. But I doubt that, being that they shot a bottle and they hit the bottle. I imagine it's just a censorship thing. But it's hilarious. It's hilarious to me that they're like stormtroopers. They're like taking a million shots and they don't hit a single thing. That is really funny. Okay. Okay, that's a good announcement. That's a very good announcement. I like Outlaws. I really like what they've done preservation-wise of looking after the respecting the original animation and stuff. That's really cool. But I imagine that there will be some kind of physical release version of this. And, as long as it's not too crazy a price, yeah, I will buy it because I love the original and I want to be able to experience those animations in real time, and it would be fun to play through this again. But for me, if they add some kind of graphical options in there to either have it running in widescreen and at the high frame rate, but at a lower resolution, or even just have the original textures as an option to turn on. That would really, really help. So I hope they do that for those people that want it. A bit like how, Bubsy 4D automatically looked so much cooler to me when they added in the original PS1 model. It just, I don't know, it just fits the aesthetic more to me. But yeah, no. So where would I place it on my tier list? I guess, again, I'm going to put it at A. It can't be an S tier because I'm not overjoyed. Everything about it wasn't quite perfect. But yeah, no, I'm glad this exists, and it's a good game. It's a very good game. If you've never played it before, this is one of the early but long lost classics of FPS genre. Right, next up there was He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, a Dragon Pearl of Destruction. Now, as I say, I didn't watch the entire event live. If I did, this would be one of the ones that I overreacted to and whooped and screamed and yelled. Yes, please. He-Man, Master of the Universe, big part of my childhood. I'm exactly the right age for this to hit me in the nostalgic lands. It was He-Man, then it was Ghostbusters, then it was Ninja Turtles, and those are like the three big things. Or if you're a tiny bit younger than me, then the next thing after that, I guess, was Power Rangers. And then the next thing after that was probably Pokemon. So it's like, the big thing. So that's, to those of you who don't know He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, that's how big it was. It was as big as Ghostbusters then became for a while, and then as big as the Turtles, as big as Power Rangers, as big as Pokemon. He-Man, huge. And again, I've not watched this trailer yet, but what I do know is it is a side-scrolling beat-em-up, and I love side-scrolling beat-em-ups. Again, spoiler alert, for my own development career, I have at least one side-scroll. I say at least because there's another one that I'm not, it's a bit up in the air, but I'm not really allowed to talk about it, but I'm excited about it. But I have one side-scrolling beat-em-up of my own in development, and I'm potentially, shall we say, working on another big one as well. My hope for this is that it is like proper retro style pixel art, modern gameplay, but with like super good quality pixel art graphics. That seems to be what a lot of modern scrolling beat 'em ups are going for. Like there was a recent Power Rangers one, there's Marvel Invasion, which is coming soon, there's a Toxic Crusaders one, there's the River City Girls series. There's so many of them, and they're all great, and I love them all. But sometimes people go for the more kind of, the Streets of Rage 4 style. Streets of Rage 4 was an excellent game, don't get me wrong, but it went for a kind of modernized hand-drawn but kind of vector art style, and to me it's not my preference. It wasn't bad art by any standards, but for a game with this kind of gameplay style where you can't have completely smooth many frames of animation, because that then breaks the gameplay style. So you have to have kind of jerky or for example, you press punch, right? It needs to be maximum of 2 frames of animation for that punch to happen in order for the gameplay to feel snappy and to feel like the old arcade games. You can't, go into 12 to 24 frames of perfectly smooth, beautifully drawn animation, right? You can't do that. So in order to have a game playing like the classical beat 'em ups and feeling good, you have to purposely have a low amount of animation frames in everything except the walk cycle. The walk cycle is the only thing that you can have smooth animation on. But therefore, if you're going for a super high res HD or even 4K hand-drawn art that looks like you can have amazing hand-drawn cutscenes that look like an anime or look like a 90s cartoon. Amazing. Yeah, brilliant. And I hope they do that for this He-Man game, to look like the original 1980s cartoon. But for the gameplay, to me, it just works much better, and stylistically works much better when you have kind of period correct, or at least nearly period correct pixel art. But just with a widescreen widescreen aspect ratio, so you can see more ahead of you and more behind you. And yeah, I don't mind more modern gameplay elements coming in, but for a classic arcade style scrolling beat 'em up, for me the pixel art style works so much better as long as the pixel art is good. And I did see like the thumbnail for this was kind of like it had some pixel art in there, so yeah, I'm hoping that's what we're going to get. Is we're going to have maybe animated cutscenes or an animated intro that looks like the 1980s cartoon, maybe, or maybe a modernized version of it, and then the pixel art is really good. I want it to look like Shadows of Mysteria. I want it to look like Revenge of Death. Yeah. Wouldn't this game basically, if I was going to make a He-Man game, it would basically be Golden Axe. It would basically be Revenge of Death Adder. We're going to have dragons that breathe fire, and that's like the screen clearing move. We're going to have ride-on creatures. Like, obviously, they have to have a ride-on Battle Cat. I would be surprised if we don't see that in there. But also the He-Man toys, they were so iconic with the vehicles. So hopefully we'll have some ride-on vehicles as well. What else would I love to see? I'd love to see She-Ra in there as well. I mean, yeah, obviously we'll probably get Teela, but it would be fantastic if we had, the She-Ra universe in with the Masters of the Universe as well. As I mentioned in my breakdown of the Sonic Crossworlds, for some reason I just like female versions of male characters. So like I like Amy more than Sonic. I like Minnie more than Mickey. I like Ms. Pac-Man more than Pac-Man. I don't know why. To me, it's just neat when you have like let's take a popular male character and then make a female equivalent. So for me, She-Ra and the Princess of Power is really cool. I like that. So it'd be really great if we get her in the Master of the Universe game. But I understand if they don't. I understand why not. It opens them up for a sequel. And yeah, I'm glad this exists. So let's look at the trailer. But I am anticipating that I'm going to absolutely love this. I'm anticipating this is going to be game of show for me, if you don't count the Sonic and Pac-Man announcement. Let's watch the trailer. Oh God, right in the feels, right in the childhood. I had literally all of these. Oh my God. It's like an 80s, it's like an 80s commercial. Oh my God, look at that. Oh, yes, see, this is what I wanted. This is gorgeous. Oh, wow, yes. This is perfect. This is exactly what I wanted. And that dragon with the screen clearing move. Jesus. Yes. Okay. Okay. Hold up. Okay. Firstly, I mean, they're really nostalgia pandering by starting off with trying to recreate the 1980s TV commercials for the toy range and using the real toys. That's a really cool idea. It's nostalgia pandering, but it's really cool. I think I had every single one of those toys, except my version of He-Man was the one where he had like a gimmick that if you hit him in the chest, it would make a dent on his chest and it would like spin around. You could hit him up to 3 times and make like 3 dents in his armor, and it like spun around and you could spin it back and then it fixed itself. That was really cool. But yeah, I had that Skeletor, I had the Castle Grayskull, I had all of those characters that were there. Also, the announcer, the person doing the voiceover, really sounded like the voice of the guy from the original TV show. Did they actually manage to get him, or is it just somebody doing like a really good impression of that kind of thing? I don't know. Again, like I don't know if they got the original voice of Bubsy back or if it's just somebody doing a Bubsy impression. But yeah, that voice announcer was again spot on, absolutely right. And those. I mean, I said I hope the pixel graphics were good. Oh my God. That is, perfect. Moi, chef's kiss. Everything about that was amazing. And you were right. I said, obviously you'll be riding animals and vehicles and things. I hope you get to, obviously you should ride on Battle Cat. And that's literally like the first thing that they show. And it looked amazing. It looked so good. All the characters looked great. They looked exactly like I'd want them to. They looked authentic to the original cartoon series, but in pixel art, as if you'd have had a super high spec, what would have been at the time the most powerful arcade board at the time, probably the CPS-1 or maybe even the CPS-2. So again, like I said, I wanted it to be like kind of Shadows of Mysteria, you know, I think that's what it was called. And now I'm doubting myself, but you know what I mean. The Capcom made Dungeons and Dragons scrolling beat 'em ups. There was 2 of them, but also there's absolutely elements of the original Golden Axe and also Golden Axe Revenge of Death Adder. And again, Revenge of Death Adder, it was a Sega System 32 game. It was pixel art, but it was about as good pixel art as you could ever get. Much better than would have been possible on the Mega Drive or the Super Nintendo or the TurboGrafx or anything like that. This was, at the time, if you went to the arcade, even though the games were still 2D, they were like the height of 2D graphics. And for me, 2D graphics have never really got better than what was happening at that time. And in my own kind of pixel art games, I'm not saying I hit it, but that's what I aim to. That's what I want, is I want to be able to have something that feels authentically like a game from the early to mid 90s, but also feels like if you'd have watched it, if you'd have seen that game at the time, you would have gone, whoa, these graphics are beautiful, these graphics are amazing, wow. Good God, it looked good. I'm gonna play the trailer again. I love seeing the toys, and I love the fact that they're clearly played with, like it's not in mint condition, like how the staff is a bit bent, because that's what happened in real life. They didn't stay perfect. Look at that. The use of color is fantastic. The backgrounds are perfect. 4 on screen at once. It looks so cool. So that's Tila, that's not She-Ra, but still, maybe we'll get her, or maybe we'll get her as DLC, a bit like with the Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge, again, a game which I love, and I feel like they got it absolutely perfect. Everything about that game was pitched perfectly. But then they had DLC, which added more characters and more areas, more campaigns. So yeah, there's absolutely scope to do that. Or just a sequel for She-Ra. But yeah. I mean, so it's limited run. A lot of people have issues with limited run, but like I said in my Shantae episode, my 2-hour deep dive into the Shantae series that I plugged earlier, and I'm plugging it again now. I'm proud of that one. Go watch it. Please. Thank you. Yeah, like I said in there, okay, yeah, limited run have had some controversies in the past. Fair enough. And there are some games which people have ordered and still haven't been delivered yet because there's been delays and things. I know some people are still saying, oh, I'll never order from limited run again because I'm having issues. Okay. Yes, I completely empathize. But there have been so many games recently which literally would not be happening without funding from limited run, and limited run are funding some absolute bangers, some games that I'm just elated that they exist, and this is one of them. Thank you, limited run, for allowing this to exist. And with their games that they fund, by the way, I mean, yeah, even if there is issues with, oh, you think that the physical versions are too expensive, or you don't trust that they're going to turn up on time, or you think that they're going to be late, or you think there's going to be issues like there was with the CDI game or whatever. Okay. But with the games that they fund, to be absolutely fair to them, they allow digital releases to be released at the same time. So even if there is a limited amount of the physical copies that end up being very expensive if you don't manage to pick them up right away, by the way, go and order the new Shantae game right now. You've only got like just over a week, maybe 2 weeks to order that. Otherwise, God help you on the secondhand market. Not sponsored by limited run. # not sponsored. It's just, Shantae games in the past have massively gone up in price. But they release digital versions of all the games for, with no limitations and for a very reasonable price, and I've no reason to think that this won't be exactly the same. I didn't see any mention of a Switch 2 version, but again, that's understandable because presumably this isn't going to be like a $70-$80 game. Presumably this will be like all the other games like this. It will be released around about the $30 to $40 mark, and you just can't do that right now. For a physical game on Switch 2, it's impossible, and I've talked about that at length, and it really makes me sad as a dev myself because I want to put my games out on Switch 2, but I don't want to overcharge for them, and I'm looking for ways around it. I'm looking for ways to reduce the cost. I'm looking for ways to maybe have a Switch 2 version that's only available in like a special edition version, so I can charge more money but not feel guilty because it comes with extra stuff. I don't know, or hopefully Nintendo will fix the problems, and it looks like they are at least thinking about ways to fix the problems. It looks like we might get a 32 gig cart. It looks like they might start allowing Switch 1 carts to have a Switch 2 logo. We'll see. But again, this is already a very long episode. I can't really rant about that too much. But yeah, this looks phenomenal. S tier, absolutely S tier, no question about it. It still didn't make me cry like the Sonic versus Pac-Man reveal did, but it really does hit me in the feels, and this is a bit of me. This is S tier, S tier, yes. This is like one of those things that you didn't know you wanted it until you see it, and then you're like, oh yes. Why haven't I had this already? Why doesn't this already exist? This is perfect. He-Man could not be a more perfect property for a retro style pixel art scrolling beat 'em up. This is yes. Why didn't we get one back in the day? And there was a Masters of the Universe game for the 8-bit micros and stuff. It might have been a Famicom game as well. I'm not sure, but this it's so obvious when you think about the subgenre of side scrolling beat 'em up games which are fantasy based, like Golden Axe, etc. They were so popular. There were so many of them, and why didn't somebody release a He-Man one? I guess it's because by the time they got popular, people had moved on from He-Man, and it was Ninja Turtles. But it's such a shame because, oh my god, it's just such a perfect idea, and this is why we've got a company like Limited Games who will fund somebody to go back and make an alternate version of the past. If I'd have seen this as a child, this would have blown my mind. And no, frankly, it still does blow my mind. Well done to the devs. This looks amazing. Obviously, I'm going to be buying it. Obviously, I'm going to be reviewing it on this channel. Bloody hell. Yeah, great. I don't want to move on. What's the next game? Yeah. I'm looking at the list here. We've got like 7 or 8 more games to go, and some of them are ones that I know that I've got a lot to talk about and things that I want to talk about, and obviously we have to deep dive into the specific details about the Sonic and the Sonic and Pac-Man thing. If you've just randomly found this video on YouTube, by the way, or searched on Spotify, I suppose, or whatever, and you were hoping for a full reaction to the whole show because you specifically wanted to hear about Sonic and Pac-Man, sorry, I was so hyped for Sonic and Pac-Man that I reacted to that one instantly, and I did a whole separate 40-minute episode having a complete breakdown, talking in great depth about that. I took like a 1-minute trailer and turned it into a 40-minute video. So yeah, if you did come here looking for Sonic and Pac-Man, sorry, go check out the separate video. It's on Spotify and audio as well, but I'd recommend you check out the video on YouTube because I literally go through the trailer and keep pausing and pointing out things. So yeah. And as for the other games, I'm going to go right into making a part 2. I'm literally going to make it today, immediately right now. But I just know that from experience, my internet doesn't allow me to upload videos that are, more than 2 hours long. It's just not possible. It keeps disconnecting. So I'm going to have to cut it here and go straight into the next part. So if you have watched all the way to the end or listened all the way to the end and you didn't just skip around trying to get to your favorite game, thank you so much for sticking with me all the way through. Leave a comment. Let me know what your favorite game was or what you think. But also subscribe if you haven't already. And if you have, thank you. But subscribe if you haven't already, because I'm going to be going right back into part 2, and we have some incredible games to go over. What do we have? Absolem, and another side-scrolling beat 'em up, and the animation in that is beautiful. Obviously we've got the Sonic Racing Cross Worlds and Pac-Man World 2 re-pac DLC details to go into. I did the 40-minute episode having a breakdown about just the implications of it, but now I've done my research and I've got more information, so we can go into that. We've got Hollow Knight Silk Song. How many times have I joked on this channel going into a live event if we're going to see Silk Song? We actually did see Silk Song. Okay, so we're going to talk about that. We got Lego Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight. I'm a big Batman guy, and again, I'm in the movie industry, and I know people who work on Batman movies, including good friends of mine. So yeah, we're going to talk about Batman. Also, I know people who work on the Lego games, so we've got a lot to talk about there. Daemon X Machina Titanic Scion. That is one of my absolute most anticipated Switch 2 games. I talk about it often. I love the look of that, and we got a brand new trailer, and there's a demo out now. What? I can play it now? What? Indiana Jones and the Great Circle? Exclusive Xbox games. One of the main reasons that you would consider buying an Xbox One S or an Xbox One X, and it's coming out on the Switch too. What? Chronos: The New Dawn. We've got a longer trailer, and that was a game that, again, I reacted to it in the Partner Direct and said I thought it looked really, really cool. So I'm looking forward to seeing even more in a new trailer for that. And then we have Cult of the Lamb as well, Woolhaven expansion. Cult of the Lamb, that's a game that a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, streamed on Twitch and played a lot, and I moderated while she did, and we had such fun. We had such fun with that game. So it's not a game that I personally play, but I love the sense of humor. I love the graphics. I love the theming. It's really cool. So to get an expansion pack for that as well, that's cool. So we've got all of that and more to get into. But I think I'm going to have to take a break here and upload it as a separate video. Thanks for listening, and remember to subscribe to hear all of that. And also come and join our free members area. It's Patreon, but there's a free tier, and it's absolutely free, and we do free monthly competitions and give away official Nintendo prizes. Cool, neat little stuff like gacha toys and Nintendo stationery and little Mario and Luigi figures, all kinds of things. Come and join us. linktr.ee/dailyswitch2, linktree/dailyswitch2. You can also support the show there as well if you want. That would be really great, because oh my god, it's nearly killing me doing all these live events back to back. And also stick with me, because we're going to be getting the Kirby video as well. I'm like about 3/4 of the way through finishing that one, so hopefully that one will be out any minute as well. So thank you guys. Later. I'm rambling because I'm tired. Later.